Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to discuss about TENSEI SHITARA Slime Datta. So without any ado, let's continue. Chapter 152, Great War Outbreak, Agitation and Resolution. The war had begun. It started earlier than I had expected. The final warning line that Testarossa pointed out was stepped over by the Empire's forces without any hesitation. At that moment, the Eastern Empire and Monsters country Tempest fell into a state of war. As an immediate response, Benimaru's instructions were transmitted to the 1st and the 3rd Corps via Thought Link. The two forces of the Tempest military began mobilizing simultaneously. Since the power of the tank cannon was unknown, it was suicidal to stay in the same position carelessly. There was still some distance left to traverse before both armies made contact, but we couldn't be careless as the effective range of the enemy's weapon was still not clear. The most striking difference between the former world's and this world's tank might be its shorter barrel. Inside the Jura Great Forest where trees grew densely, there existed some trade routes. The tank corps came invading from the east, passed through the meadows and crossed the large river, but its turret length wouldn't cause any trouble when rotating the gun turret even inside a forest with its dense trees. It was questionable whether this had any effect on its accuracy and range, but judging from the performance of the weapons they were carrying, such as the rifle from a while ago, I thought that this situation was clearly problematic. The rifle from a while ago was silent and had no recoil. I could not confirm its silence as it was only a detailed scene projected onto the large screen that couldn't reproduce the audio. If there was someone on the actual site, they could use a video crystal to transmit the video on the monitor together with the audio, but I couldn't reproduce the audio using surveillance magic. Oh well, as the magic processes the image's wavelength via a high-altitude light source, lag would surely occur if I tried to transmit the audio. Only, this was not at the level that Raphael could correct. Is it easier to understand if I use an analogy of thunder? Since there was a several-second lag from the light, it wouldn't be able to transmit if it was also burdened with sound. That was why I couldn't determine whether the rifle from before was silent or not from the image of the large screen, but it became clear that the rifle was silent after the thought report coming from Testarossa. In this case, it could be said that this gun was a magic tool. It substituted gunpowder with a magic formula. Certainly, the tank would have the same technology with no recoil, high precision to some extent, and a lack of sound. What needed to be determined was its range and power. I was not fighting personally, but it was more worrisome than what I had thought just from watching my companions fight. But, the only thing I could currently do was assess the situation. Let's watch this fight attentively. Before situation progressed, I stated my opinion of using the improved physics magic, Megiddo, God's Wrath. But, Benimaru rejected that idea, probably after he had consulted with Raphael. There seemed to be a few reasons for this. First, to begin walking on the road as a country, they couldn't always rely on the demon lord that was their king me. If they were aware that this was their country and didn't have any intention of defending their own country, then they didn't have the qualifications to live in this country. That was the first reason. The next one was the weakness of Megiddo, God's Wrath. It was a formidable magic that I could activate while sitting inside the control room. However, there would be some countermeasures made once its materials are exposed. Because I exterminated everyone last time, there was no information leaked about Megiddo, God's Wrath. But, Benimaru explained that in this kind of war, if I used it carelessly, there was bound to be a survivor, and it was certain that Megiddo, God's Wrath, would be dealt with immediately. Its real identity was of high-temperature rays of bundled sunlight, and evasion by sight was almost impossible. However, some degree of protection could be acquired if one was coated with materials that possessed a heat-insulating effect. I judged that it was not easy to destroy the tank when the tank corps appeared. I might not be able to penetrate the tank if I didn't raise the power and increased its temperature to 10,000 degrees. Also, I could predict that there would be no blazing explosion as it was not powered by fuel. I might penetrate it, but it might not stop the tank's movement. I could said that its power was tremendous for anti-personnel magic, but it was a different story when facing such modern weapons. Perhaps, it would be easier to just blow them all away with a normal nuclear strike magic. In that case, it was necessary to deal with the magician who put up the barrier first, and in the end it would proceed into a war where we would be dragged into a bog of wars, and this was not a story that would end out well. Then, should I only aim at the personnel? So I thought, but I could comprehend that this was impossible, even for me. I was peerless against Pharma's kingdom, It was possible because I had confronted them on the site personally. If I was going to shoot precisely, I needed to prepare various relay points to utilize the reflection of the light. That was clearly impossible while looking through a large screen. Still, this was because I couldn't accurately grasp the space with magic power perception since there was space between me and the battlefield. So for long-ranged attacks, it will always come down from the sky. I surely understood Benimaru's argument, because it could be expected that they would take measures against it if I used it hurriedly. It seemed I needed to ascertain the situation before I used it. Then, my job was to watch, since I gave Benimaru the right to command. With such reasons, I was watching the battlefield. Gobuta's corps moved to the flank smoothly with perfectly coordinated movements. Most likely, the Empire forces would try to grasp their position with monster detection magic. From here on, it was a match of skill and speed. Gobuta was going as Benimaru's will, striking the flank of the tank corps with the speed of thunder. They were quicker than the rotation of the tank turret, and their aim was to slip into the tank from the front. They withdrew after delivering a blow to the infantry unit which was placed to protect the blind spot of the tank turret. Their refined beautiful movements were projected on the large screen. I could clearly tell that their mobility was high, even from the image which Sui's intelligence photography corps sends. Like a huge monster running through the battlefield as it pleased. At the same time, a battle had also begun in the sky. The Third Corps led by Gable, which were hidden in the sky, attacked the airships. The enemy seemed considerably surprised by this and was not able to deal with them immediately. As a result, they succeeded in sinking about 3 of them in an instant. It was the result of the repeated hit-and-run tactic used by all the members to attack in waves without being greedy. Even Gable had handled the training of his subordinates considerably well, and he seems to have acquired a remarkable air combat force. There wasn't much power in the fireballs breathed out by the wyverns. But, maybe thanks to everyone concentrating their attacks on a single spot, the numerous fireballs that they breathed out penetrate the airship's magic barrier. However, the original strategy was to attack the ground from the sky. Even though they never assumed that the battle would become an air-to-air battle, what might be called a great strenuous effort had brought about a splendid result. Gobuta and Gable. Those two showed the great results of their training and achieved result in their first actual combat. However, not everything would go smoothly. It would be proved immediately. Lieutenant General Gastar bitterly glared at the approaching cavalry. These damned people are getting cocky. He clears his mind, which was filled with anger as the monsters approach from the front. This reminded him of the terror planted by the demon named Testarossa with scarlet hair not too long ago. The monsters who can only do hit and run may not be able to damage the tanks no matter how fast they moved. He quickly orders his subordinates to prepare the tank cannon. Along with the shell type that packed magic essence and increased the destructive power, the tanks contained another attack that fired a converged magic essence gathered from the air like a beam. If it's a shell, it's possible to accomplish rapid fire even if the quantity is limited. In case it's a beam, energy charge takes time of a little over 3 minutes, but there's no quantity limitation for it. Because it's possible to alternate between these two types of attacks, the beam type is shot first and the normal shell is shot during the time it takes for the next beam to be charged. The tank's cannon preparation was completed according to Lieutenant General Gastar's order. In the first place, what are those guys in the sky doing? They should have started bombarding them from the sky to sweep the ground. Gastar commanded the tank in the outer circumference of the corps to aim and shoot the cannons at the surrounding trees while getting angry at the carelessness of his colleagues. The tank corps started expanding the battlefield by mowing down the surrounding trees while alternating between the two types of shells. In the first place, despite how large the trade route is, it's quite narrow if 3 tanks form a line. Because they were at a disadvantage as the enemy was setting up surprise attacks with speed much higher than a wild animal from the gaps of the overcrowded trees. First of all, they began to create an advantageous situation by transforming the battlefield. The subordinates who received the order handled the task properly without being flustered. The neighboring trees are mowed down without taking much time, and a space wide enough to operate the tanks was created. As the result, the superiority of the First Corps led by Gobuta was lost as the obstacles they used to cover and hide were removed. A fierce battle also started in the sky. At first, they were caught off guard and suffered some losses, but Major General Farragut, who commanded 100 airships of the Aerial Fighter Legion, was a capable man. In the current mission, the cornerstone of the anti-Feldera containment strategy was the airship, which could be called an air fortress that had the largest magic canceller device installed. Piloting it was the elite wizard class member who commands the magicians. Adjustment of the magic amplification cannon was vital. Also, the magic barrier was laid out to always protect the airship. Furthermore, shield, wall shield, which is a magic to deal with physical attacks, is amplified to prevent attacks to the airship. A superficial attack will not surpass it. Actually, after the first wave of attacks, the airship didn't suffer any damage from the Wyvern's fireball. Major General Farragut unconsciously sprouted a smile and regained his composure. After becoming calm, he felt resentment as 3 airship had sunk after being surprised by the likes of Wyvern. The deployment of shield was not done in time and the attack surpassed the magic barrier, and became the proof of his carelessness. With such anger he faced the approaching Wyverns. Counterattack. To magicians who stand by at the magic amplification cannon station, begin the spell chant. So, he issued an order. The spell of the magician who usually fire it was amplified to 20 times of its power by the magic amplification cannon. It's a cannon only in name, actually it's just a pedestal with an ability to amplify the used magic. A huge spell control orb was made with a magic stone of high purity originally. Orbs which were attached to staffs were as big as a fist due to spell amplification effects. Various large-scale magics were able to be cast. In the battlefield of the sky, lights of dazzling magic spells danced wildly with lightning, blizzard, fire, and wind. Of course, Gable and his corps which became the targets couldn't be said to be safe from it. I, who was watching the progress, rose from my seat. Several of Gobuta's subordinates were blown off after receiving the explosion of the tank cannon. Attacked by large-scale magic, the Wyverns fell together with the lizardmen who were riding them. Casualties began to appear at the same time the initial superiority was lost. Casualties were expected. No, I expected it, but I might have been optimistic. I will win without a big deal. Since Raphael didn't say anything, I had the naive thought that there would be no problems. But, reality was different. Well, that is so because it's a war after all. It can't be a natural thing to win without any damage received by this side. I felt anger and agitation to an extent I couldn't say anything as I clearly saw my naivete. Please sit down, Rimuru-sama. It's within the predictions. There's no problem. Benimaru said to me with a calm aura. To his words, I reacted as if something was exploding inside of me. Can't you see that causalities have appeared? Therefore, I will go out and use, Megiddo, God's wrath. But, my words were interrupted in the middle. That's no good. As the Supreme Commander, I can't allow the king to be exposed to danger. Above all, the enemy side has the dangerous person named Yuuki. In addition, I heard that the Emperor's Imperial Guards are strong. There might be other strong people in the Empire. Without knowing the enemy's war potential, for the king to go out to the front is out of question. Please believe in us. I feebly sat down on the chair because of his words. The unpleasant feeling that was neither anger nor agitation didn't fade away. There was nothing I could do, because Benimaru's words were correct. Shin who was standing behind me, Sui who stands by the side too. There's nothing to say about Diablo, Shana who was looking at me anxiously. I realized that everyone already prepared for victims to appear. Also, it wasn't only the people in this room. Perhaps, everyone that was fighting on the front too. With their resolution to become the bait to lure out the strong people, they would stand in the battlefield. It was only me that had no resolution. And then at that time. Therefore, I have to be perfect. So, I thought that I heard the voice somewhere. Even you too, are you worrying about me? But, now it's alright. Me grieving all the time would be rude to those people. Sorry, I was not calm for a moment. When I apologized to Benimaru, he nods. Rest assured. Victory will certainly be yours. So, he promised me. His usual carefree face was not there, now it is the serious expression of a great general that held the life of his soldiers in his hand. To his words, I felt my agitation, troubles, and unpleasant feelings disappear. I had already prepared to kill my enemy even if I had to die with him. But, for someone to die for my sake, I didn't think about it too deeply. It was necessary for me to accept it. That act is done not only for my sake, it's for their family and the country that protects them, for the existence that symbolizes them all. And that is me. For this reason, as my compensation for their action, defeat was not allowed. Of course. Convey my word to everyone. Okay. Yes. By all means. I obtained Benamera's approval and displayed the maximum ability of thought control, and gave out the order to all subordinates joined to the genealogy of my soul while putting forward all my emotions. Hear this. Defeat the enemy with all your power. It's not necessary to show mercy and there is no need to go easy. With all of the power that you have, eliminate the enemy immediately. Benimaru nods to my words and smiles appear on the faces of the executives. That order meant one thing. Release the restrained power. Properly understanding the meaning of my words, the monsters resumed their action. And then, my words would greatly change the state of the war. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe and press the bell icon for more content.